Does does anybody have any kind of question? Any question? Now we've been sitting, I think it's 9 days, 10 days. So the people who've been here from the beginning are starting to get into the rhythm. I think the Sanims always get into the rhythm pretty quickly because it's a frequent part of our life. And now 2 lay people came and joined us. And later there'll be others who come for a week or 2 weeks. So I think we're all happy about that. It's our Sungsan Sanim's style everywhere in the world to have monks and nuns and lay women, lay men all practice and function together during retreat. And in the Western Zen centers, it's almost all lay people who live together. Of course, in the West, daytime, most people go out to work or to school. But they, living together, get up together, do morning practice and eat breakfast, go out and work, come back, and if they're not doing something social outside, have dinner together and evening practice together. So it's a very, a practice that fits everyday life very well. The issues when I was first living in the Zen Center in the 1970s and 80s, as a lay person, the issues were simply that you didn't have a lot of time for social life. And most of the people who moved into the centers were quite willing to give that up for a bunch of years, even as they studied or were working some jobs. Eventually, as a lay person, the people would get more interested as they got into their 30s in more social life, in actually creating a career, and many times making a family. And although Sungsan Sanim was quite open to families living in the Zen Center, most people found that they needed more private space and private time. So even the the stronger students who made families would move out and support the Zen Center and the practice from outside the Zen centers. If you have some question, just raise your hand. But if not, I have something interesting I came across today. There's 2 newspapers in America that I occasionally check, the New York Times and the Washington Post. And today in one of them, there was an article about Korea. And it was about a fairly new phenomena, maybe you heard about it, called Mung. Miem Yo Ung, Mung. They only had the English, and they called it hitting Mung. Yeah, hitting Mung. Oh, maybe it's not yo, it's just o. Yeah, okay. Oh, there's Mung Dae. Yeah. Okay, so that's like a thing now. And basically it means doing nothing. And they had a picture of a small tea shop on the edge of Seoul Forest, and these 3 people sitting on these very comfortable chairs on the floor and separate from each other. You're not allowed to talk, you're not allowed to use your phone. You can sit there and just look out the window at the forest and drink some tea or coffee. You can write poems, but the point is to relax by doing nothing. And they apparently, someplace has a place called Forest Mung. Maybe the city will make a Forest Mung walk right up here where they make this wellness center. And there's all kinds of stuff like that. And now, I think it's also appearing like in Singapore and Taiwan. Right now it's an Asian phenomena of having oh, you know what would be really interesting? Going on a Mung date. Like going out on a date where you don't talk to each other at all, you don't use your hand phone, you just sit there and look out the window at some trees or something. And there's a movie now you can watch on, I guess, your TV or computer, 35 minutes of just flying through the clouds in the sky. And actually the Norwegians have a similar thing decades ago. You can, on your television, there's a 24-hour channel that is just a picture of a fireplace and burning logs. And you just sit there and stare at it. And you're, they say hitting Mung, but I like munging out. Like we used to say, zoning out. But I was thinking of this Taoist saying, a saying from Tokyo, Taoism. Quiet in the mountains is not true quiet. Quiet in the busy city is true quiet. So I think what Kyoche is, it's munging out. It's munging out. But the point is to mung out inside. Do nothing. While outside, your body does what it's supposed to do. It sits, gets up and walks, and then goes over and eats, and then cleans something, and then takes a little rest, and then walks in the mountains. So if we can learn to mung out inside, I don't mean blank, just relax. What does Musangsa say? Don't make anything. Then you just follow the situation. So, but people's lives are so stressed. It's interesting that rather than thinking of meditation, they probably think of meditation as one more thing I'm scheduling. Let's see, there's the night at the gym, and then there's some computer thing I'm doing, and then I'm going to meet my friends, and then I'm going to go I'm going to go to the temple and meditate, and it's just another schedule, But everybody who comes here has a little taste or a little faith that it's possible to not make anything. What does not make anything mean? When you're hungry, eat. When it's time to go to sleep, go to sleep. But we can't do that. How many people eat when they're not hungry? Keep eating even after they're not hungry. And you can't tell anymore if you live that way. You can't tell when you're not hungry, when you are, when you're tired or not tired, and all those things. So that's always making something until you can't even tell what not making anything is. So mung out. Okay, that's the new advanced thing in society. So that's been our job 2,500 years. Which means when it's time to do something, do it. When I was in high school, I had a teacher taught history, and he gave a short series of classes on the comic strips in the newspaper. And he used to teach us about the different techniques of propaganda. And it was mildly interesting, and using psychology to influence people. It's in a lot of the comic strips, It's also completely in advertising. Bob Wassenaam and I were talking. Until college, when I'd put toothpaste on my toothbrush, I'd put the toothpaste the whole length of the bristle part. And it would always make too much foam. And I did that for 18 years. And one day I'm at college in the group bathroom, and my friend says, "Why you put so much toothpaste on the toothbrush?" I was like, "I don't know, I just always did it." And he said, "You only need a little bit." And I used a little bit, and it's great. It's fine. I was using 5 times the necessary amount, and then I realized why. I saw it on television. The TV commercials for toothpaste, they always put it on the whole length because they want you to empty the tube faster and buy more. And it was like, oh my God, and everything's like that. I mean, we do it even when we're doing things with other people, but that's what it's about. It's not to give you information about something existing. Unfortunately, it's primarily to create a desire and get you to spend money on something. Wow, that's amazing. So that's why people need the Mung out, So anyway, with the cartoons, I wasn't interested in these many panels except for one guy who sort of was like a New York sort of liberal guy in the 50s and 60s. And he made some really interesting ones, clever ones. But I liked some of the one panel one. And I remember something that I thought of today when I thought of this hitting Mung, It's a one panel drawing of hell. It's a picture of hell. And you can see all these different places in hell. And people are being boiled in hot oil, and people are being stabbed, but they don't die. And then there's these people who have a wheelbarrow filled with stones, and they have to push it up an incline. And then it comes back down, and they have to push it up again. It's just like the myth of Sisyphus from Greek. He's condemned to roll this stone up, and every time he gets it up to the top, it rolls back down, and then he has to do it again, like forever, So everybody's suffering, And then there's these two devils, and they're standing on this kind of ridge, looking over hell, and everybody's suffering. But there's this one guy, and he's really goofy looking, and he's got a wheelbarrow full of stones, and he's pushing it up the mountain, but he's kind of whistling, like, do-do-do-do-do-do, here we go, up the mountain, oh, there it goes down, here we go, up the mountain. He's having a great time. And one of the devils says, I don't think we're getting through to this one. And I was thinking, this guy is munging out all the time. He's just up there pushing the wheelbarrow up the hill and then doing it again. And he's just having the best time of his life. So if we can do that inside, then all the things that are difficult or not difficult, we can just do. We don't have to be having the best time of our life, but we just do it. Then maybe when it's time to die, if we're fortunate, we just do it. There's chamomile tea in here. Everybody, the two people who've come, you've probably already seen the cats. We have 3 cats who live here. Their mother showed up about 3.5 years ago. She was a wild mountain cat who was pregnant, and she went underneath the outdoor refrigerator, and she had 4 kittens there. And she wasn't afraid of us. And after a little while, the kittens would come out, but they were afraid. They'd run back in. And she started to come to the back door of the kitchen and, meow, 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 meow. So I think one of the Sanim started to give her cheese or a bowl of milk or something. And so then, of course, she started coming every day. And eventually we got some cat food and put it out in a bowl. And the kittens would come out as they got a little bigger, but you couldn't really touch the kittens. They were scared of us, but they saw that the mom wasn't scared of us. So slowly they got a little braver. And the mom would, every once in a while, they'd appear partway up the hill near the Buddha Hall, and the 4 kittens would be playing, and she'd just be laying there while we went up and down. And they got less and less afraid of us. And then at a certain point, they started to eat solid food. So all 5 of them would gather around the bowl. Twice a day we put it out, and they'd eat whatever they wanted. And finally, at some point, the mom left, and the other 4 lived here. And at one point, we even built a house for them. It's down near Gyeongsan-dae. It's a really nice house. It has 3 entrances, 2 stories, and inside it has sort of a cat elevator from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. You know, it just has a hole and they can climb up. And they don't use it. They don't like it. So we just let them live and sleep wherever they want. And we feed them twice a day. And at one point, we caught them all and took them to the vet in Nonsan to get them fixed so they can't make any babies. And it turned out they're all males. And there were 4, these 3, and there was a black and white one. And he disappeared one day and then we saw him at the church down the road. So we decided he converted to Christianity. And then he came back, but he didn't look very well. He was too thin and he disappeared, and I assume he went into the mountain and died. He didn't look good. But these 3 have lived here the whole time, and they're kind of dressed like Theravadan monks. So they're quite comfortable in the temple. And sometimes they come up to chanting, mostly when Hang Janine picks them up and takes them up there when he's, lighting the candles and everything. And they kind of look like, how'd I get up here? But they all go into samadhi when he grabs them. They just, because he has no thinking. He just picks them up and woo, 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 and they just totally they mung out. They mung out with him, And they know everybody, and they like most people. And they will come over, as you know, when they feel like getting some attention. And eventually we gave them names. And there's a baby kitten that showed up from a different family. And Ilham Sanim started to feed it down there. So one day I thought maybe we'd buy a little bed for it. And then when I was out, I bought a bed for these because we've never given them a bed or anything 3 years. And they seem to really love it. And then Bopil Sanim, I asked them to make something that can stay a little warmer for them during the winter, But the last couple weeks, I hang out with them sometimes and just sit there with them. And I realize their life is very quiet. It's amazingly quiet, And I didn't hear any of them make noises to each other. And they seem to know each other very well. They get together when they feel like it, or they don't get together when they don't feel like it. All 3 are so independent. But I realized that when I sit with them, it's much quieter than when I sit meditation. I don't know, I think I'm munging out. Yeah, that's great. But, wow. And that's what you said. Sansanim said, cats know cat's job. They're not too busy. They just do the things they do. And our guests probably haven't heard them at night yet, but every once in a while, another wild cat shows up. And then there's sort of, a standoff where they're kind of like, I'll kill you, no, I'll kill you, no, I'll kill you, no. They're making that cat angry sound with each other. And I think it's a pretty good life. I like it. But somehow, wow, we get so involved in. When I was an adult, I guess that would be finish college, then you kind of became an adult. In America, when I was growing up, that was around 22. Continues to about 60, say, 55, 60. I realized when I was doing the lay life that there were three things that you really had to work on that were important during those years. Relationships, which often meant family, either dealing with your own family or making a family, or even if you're single, somehow living in a way in terms of human relationships that was satisfying, work, and where you lived. So three things: home, work, and relationships. And if you could get the three functioning fairly well, that was pretty good. And as a young person, those things changed fairly often. If they were all changing at the same time, that could be pretty disturbing, you know. I don't know what a Saneem's life is. It's like you sort of drop all three and then just follow the situation. But in any case, this is what human beings deal with. And I think often you don't have a lot of time to reflect on your life once you get very involved in taking care of those three things. So nowadays, people need things that help them get some space from the stress of working on those things, and not just mung out. You also have to reflect. Maybe that automatically happens when people just sit there doing nothing but looking at the forest. And that's what we're doing here, sort of, even if you're just looking at the floor. Very important.
As a community leader, teacher, you cannot mong out too much. How it is, you have some responsibility of other people.
Zen teachers?
Or community leader, or you cannot...
Community leader.
Really mong out too much, you know?
I mung out all the time. I hope that he takes care of things. And I hope he can mung out while he's doing it. Yeah, I think I felt, years ago when I was I guess I'm abbot now, but when I was the abbot in various Zen centers, I had to keep a lot, pay attention to a lot of things. So without a real regular practice, it's very difficult. I also remember that I lived in the Zen Center for 7 years as a layperson before I became a Saneem, and I worked outside a lot of that time. Although when we moved Providence Zen Center out of the city to Cumberland, I worked for the Zen Center. And when I would go to Sungsan Saneem and talk about some problem, either he would tell me some kind of practicing to do, like you must do 500 bows every day or something, or 3,000 gate gate paragate every day, or he'd give me some specific advice about the specific problem. Oh, you say this to them, or whatever. But one day I realized that every time I went to talk to him about those kinds of things, the first thing he said to me is, "Don't worry." And after years, one day it occurred to me, the first thing he always says, to me at least, is, "Don't worry. Maybe I should learn to not worry." That was some teaching he was giving. And it took some years, but most of the time now I don't worry about things. at all. And I realized along the way, worrying doesn't help. Worrying is a kind of wasting of energy rather than center yourself and see clear, hear clear, smell clear, have a big question. Look back at yourself. What's going on? How am I helping create this situation? That's much better. And so one day I looked up what Buddha says about worrying, and he said it comes from greed. Isn't that interesting? It comes from greed. Wanting things to be a certain way, being greedy at that. And whatever your state of mind, your experience is, if we see it clearly, it can't control us very much, and we can make it disappear. But we have to be able to see it clearly, and we have to be willing to recognize it and accept, oh my God, I do think that way. And of course, Sung Sansanim was a great example of that. We used to say in America, if you want to make our teacher happy, buy him an airplane ticket to some place he's never been. Then he could go there, meet people, and teach them Zen. He devoted his whole life to that. One time, one of his students, who's now a Zen master, was very sick, and in Boston, she went into the hospital. She was there about 6 weeks, and she couldn't eat or drink anything. So there was a big tube that went into a big blood vessel, and all her nutrition and liquids went in there. And when Sansanim was visiting Boston, I was the abbot, he asked me to take him to the hospital. He wanted to visit her. So she was one of his students. She wasn't a teacher at the time, but she was a very good and serious lay student. And I took him there and got a chair, and he sat down on the bed, next to the bed, and I was just sort of sitting off on the side, and they were talking. And at one point, she said to Sansanim, why do I have this sickness? And he said, too much desire. And she didn't like that, because her aim was become clear, help everybody. So she said, then why are you always sick? And he said, also too much desire, too much want to save all beings. And I thought, yeah, that's true. That's also a desire. But he knows it, and he just goes and does it, If you knew him, he drove himself as far as he could right into a hospital. And even in the hospital, he was quite aware of others and how to use the situation to poke them or help them. And another time, a similar thing happened. The last year he was alive, Dae Bong, the American monk who was one of the 3 Sanims helping Sansanim during the last year of his life, the last 2 years, told me, one time he came in to Sansanim's room, he wasn't well at all, and he kind of had this crinkly forehead, like it looked like he's thinking about something, and he said to Sansanim, are you thinking? And Sansanim said, greedy mind. And then Dae Bong said, Sansanim saved his life. And he said, sir, why do you say that? You're a great bodhisattva. You've saved my life and many others. He said, too much want to save all beings. And I think that was probably true. For a moment, he was having, who knows, some kind of thinking of, oh, I wish I could go to Hong Kong or Europe so I could help them more. That's thinking, that's a desire. So we talk about cut-all thinking, which is a very good aim, but but thinking is also a natural process, which appears just like seeing and hearing and everything. So we know the 6th patriarch, when he got enlightenment, He just was stopping as a layperson to listen to this monk chant. And he was chanting the Diamond Sutra. And when he heard the line, don't attach to anything that arises in your mind, he got enlightenment. So that's our aim. That's one of our aims. Don't attach to anything that arises in your mind. Then what? The floor's yellow, and we're having a Sunday afternoon Dharma talk. Very clear. And after this, there'll be a little free time, and then time to eat. That's a not making anything. That's the best munging out. Just follow your correct situation and don't make anything. So now we have really just the first 10 days of Kyelche, and 2 people have joined for a week. So let's all of us continue to practice. Don't attach to anything that arises in our mind, and just follow the correct situation. And then one day, maybe if we're in hell, we can be like that guy. And when we're in good situation, we can do that one too. Okay? So this is the real treasure, this practice, and this opportunity to have a concentrated time of doing it together. And like Ipsung Sinim said, one string, easy to break, but when we bind them all together, it makes the whole thing strong. So if we can do that here, we can begin to do it anywhere in the world, with any group, family or group we're with. So let's just do it. Thank you.